Councillor Emma Toll, not present. Any declarations of interest? None. Noted. The minutes on pages 4 to 12 of the agenda, are they an accurate record?
Agreed.
Thank you. Are there any matters arising? None. Item 5, there being no written questions from the public. Item 6, no written questions from councillors. Item 7, no petitions. Item 8, the forward plan on pages 13 to 18. Are there any questions, Councillor Charles?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question on page 17. Obviously, the opposition are concerned about the progress of the local development plan, and I think that's shone into stark contrast recently when you see that our neighbouring local authority, Epping, had over 3,000 responses to a proper consultation on their local plan. So I'd be grateful if the Chair could give us an update on progress to achieve our local plan.
Well, as it says in the forward plan, still aiming for June, although there's a number of external dependencies, not least of which the duty to cooperate. I don't know if Councillor Kirkham wants to add anything in particular to that. So the intent is still to go out to Regulation 19 consultation later this year. I can't give a firm date on that yet. Because I'd say there are a number of external items, due to cooperate being one, there's some sorts of outstanding technical evidence submissions that we need to pull together. Any further questions or comments on the forward plan? In that case, it's so noted. Right, just to note the decision of the portfolio holder for housing on the publication of the annual report.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, I presume this will be circulated to all members when it's actually printed and produced.
Yes, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Right, what I intend to do is take item 11 next, and the reason for that is simply that while I intend to have majority, hopefully all, of item 10 in open forum, there is a confidential report. It's only confidential because there are some items of commercial sensitivity in it. So if there are any questions specifically on the confidential report, I will have to go into closed session. But what I'm going to do is get rid of item 11 first, come back to item 10. We'll hopefully continue as much as we can, possibly all of it in open session. But I'm just mindful that members may have some specific questions on the confidential element of the report. They may not, in which case we'll carry on. So anyway, that's how I intend to play it. So the next item then is 11A, which is the referral from scrutiny on page 30. And move that, Tony.
Chair, I have to move the recommendations on page 30.
And I will second that. I'm just going to make some very brief remarks. I don't know if you want to do it well, Tony, but clearly this is a key issue. And while Harlow is not the operative authority and has a direct statutory responsibility for the health and wellbeing board, it is clearly an item of considerable interest, particularly if you look at the public health indicators contained in the report. There are many that are not good. A whole range from alcohol-related hospital admissions to adult and child obesity to under 18 conceptions and the like. So it is an area which we are very concerned about. Councillor Deputy, who actually in the chamber, is chairing the local panel. There was a meeting from a West Essex point of view that was being led by Epping Forest District Council. So I'm hoping to get some sort of movement on this, and I think it's right that this is given careful consideration by the every working group to look at the detailed responses to what is, being blunt, not an overly sparkling story as far as public health indicators in Harlow are concerned. But any further questions or comments? So in that case, case, the recommendation on page 30 that the health and wellbeing approach is referred to the Overview Working Group with a view to developing a health and wellbeing strategy through the Council's Health and Wellbeing Board. Also agreed. Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to 11B, which is a referral from the Cabinet Overview Working Group in connection with Pets Corner.
Yes, I've been asked to promote this on as recommended on page 57, as it's indicated in the recommendations, that the idea that we would scale back to zero on Pets Corner would put Pets Corner at fundamental risk and against principles that we were laid down, and that therefore, as a result of it, we've put these recommendations as indicated.
So I'm going to take a couple of very brief remarks. So I just want to highlight a couple of things. So first of all, I note that the Overview Working Group came to the conclusion, rightly in my view, that it would be both inappropriate and not desirable to charge for admission to Pets Corner, and I'm more than happy to endorse that. And secondly, the recognition that there is going to be a requirement for continued funding for some time. It mentions specifically definite funding at current levels for the next 2 years, and notes that it is likely that funding will continue beyond that. That's certainly something that administration will be very cognizant of for some considerable time. We have taken decisions in a number of areas, particularly in connection with the budget, to make sure that the Discretionary Services Fund is appropriately funded, and taken broader decisions in relation to the Council's budget to ensure that we have as sustainable finances as possible. And there's some sort of ancillary topics, which are, for example, creating the HDS, where we can retain any surpluses within the Council, and there's an item on the agenda later in connection with the enterprise zone, which may generate future revenue streams. And all of this is about getting the Council to be as self-reliant as is possible in the light of continuing government cuts and sustainable. On that note, are there any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. Arose from a conversation with Councillor Churchill earlier this evening, before we walked into the chamber, who told me that whilst obviously I'm fully in favour of Pets Corner developing initiatives to increase income, as in this report, Councillor Churchill tells me there was a debate about the fact that there's a dog grooming sessions held at Pets Corner as part of training for apprenticeships down there, but that for some reason council officers have blocked this from being advertised because it may interfere with other dog grooming businesses in the town. I just wonder if we've got good money-making schemes down there, why we as a council are failing to advertise them. Apparently this generated quite a debate, and members of the council were quite split on this. So I wonder if you could comment and tell me why, if we've got good money-making schemes, we're not advertising them at officers' request.
Sorry, Chairman, I don't think it's that we're not advertising it. It's because it's in a developmental stage. The difficulty is with the design and the development of Pets Corner. What we don't want to be seen is to be supporting a private enterprise at this particular time. So it is something that they're looking at. They are considering it, and actually it has thrown up not only about dog grooming but other activities that would also increase rent and opportunity for people to use them. So on one level, Councillor Churchill is right in some of the stuff he's told you, but the officers are not blocking it for the reasons that he's been told. But certainly we'll be more than happy to speak with Nick privately, just to give him those assurances if you feel that would help.
Thank you. Any further questions or indeed comments on this report? Right, so the recommendation on recommendations A and B on page 57. On agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Right, I'm now going to go back to item 10 on page 20.
Sorry, Chairman, you're going to... Quite cumbersome, isn't it? Yes, I'm delighted that we're able to bring this report to Cabinet tonight with the 4 recommendations that are contained on page 20, and once it's been seconded, I'd just like to add a few words and then ask Andrew to give some background.
Sorry, you're more than happy to provide some background if you'd like.
Did you second it?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. As you can see, Chair, from the recommendations that we've made, we've already undertaken borrowing of up to £4 million to complete the infrastructure work. However, to make this a sustainable and realistic and long-term proposition, we're also asking Council to agree in principle, and the key word is in principle, to undertake borrowing of up to a further £10 million to develop and construct an office building. And again, part of that, looking at that, would be is to what the design would be, what the constraints would be, who would build it, how it would be managed, and all those issues need to be questioned and need to be brought back both to Cabinet and Council before any formal decisions would be made. I'd also like to place on record, as I always do and I will be consistent, about the really strong work that our Chief Executive, Malcolm Morley, has been doing over a number of years to enable us to develop this enterprise zone to the point that we've already done. And I'm also delighted that Andrew is our project manager for this particular area, and I think Andrew would just like to say a few words about the progress that we're making and why we think this recommendation is a key decision and a key positive decision and a very clear message to Harlow and the rest of the area. Andrew?
Thanks, Tony. Just a bit of background really as to where we are with the enterprise zone and why this is important at this particular stage. And I think just to recap on some of the achievements so far, because it's actually relevant in terms of the business rate discussion contained within this report. Clearly at KO Park, the London Road South former Nortel site, we've seen occupancy taken off in the last year, with Raytheon and Arrow moving into the site last summer, and Pearson are moving their building, their headquarters over there in June of this year. The developers have also just confirmed funding for the first data centre development on the site, and that is now under construction. And from next week, actually, you'll see some fairly significant building work there, and that completes in December. So a lot of activity there, and that's important because that is already now generating business rates income that comes into Harlow Council. We've completed pretty much now the design work for all of the infrastructure into the Science Park site. So that is the road infrastructure, the power supplies, the gas supplies, the water supplies, all of the on-site drainage. All of that is designed, ready to go out to tender next month. You'll have seen the progress on the link road from the A414 to London Road, which has been funded by the County Council and CELEP, and that's going to complete actually in the next few weeks. Although it won't actually be open to the public until next year, because we want to complete the other infrastructure work before that happens. Anglia-Ruskin University have confirmed that they're going to be building their MedTech Innovation Centre on the site, and that will also be a generator of business rates for the council from the spring of next year. So the next steps really are to complete that infrastructure work. We've done the design. We now need to crack on and enter into the contracts with the utilities companies so that we can provide a fully serviced site for the beginning of 2018. And we have some funding for that, but the council needs to undertake borrowing to complete that during the course of this year. And as Tony's mentioned, looking at the feasibility of this first building on the site to sit alongside the Anglia-Ruskin University building, which I think is important to provide a kickstart to the development. It will provide some much needed space for small businesses in the town. We're seeing a massive shortage now in good quality business accommodation, and this will provide us the ability to meet that need, but also to provide a kickstart to the whole development. In terms of funding, I've mentioned business rates. The proposal is that the loan finance is repaid entirely from the business rate uplift generated by the enterprise zone. This is now the government's preferred mechanism for the funding of enterprise zones, and the second wave of enterprise zones that were agreed last year, all entirely funded through this mechanism. We've secured an agreement with the South East LEP that we can utilise up to £72 million worth of business rate income from the enterprise zone to invest in the infrastructure of the site, but also wider projects across Harlow. And this is the first call on that £72 million that we have access to. And as I mentioned earlier, the key thing, it really is that this proposal is funded through the existing developments on site where we're already receiving business rate income, and through these first two buildings. So even if nothing else got built, as the report says, we will be able to fund the repayments on the loan. So what the report is asking for is two things really: authority to get on with the infrastructure work now, which we need to complete this year so we can start getting buildings up on the site. And secondly, is the feasibility into developing this small business space. It's important to get an in-principle decision now, because that gives A, the ability to do the detailed design work and the business planning, and B, to enable us to get into discussions with potential occupiers and operators of that site, so we can then bring back a more detailed business case for Cabinet to take some decisions on how that should operate in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Danvers.
I'd just like to ask a question, Chair. It was a bit of a shock years ago that the electricity substation suddenly appeared in Howard Way. How much bigger is it going to be? And there's quite a lot of nice planting there. Is it possible to actually do some more planting there to actually hide what is otherwise quite a graffiti-covered building, basically?
We can absolutely ensure that actually we don't want graffiti buildings, because actually this is going to be prime site for
No,
business.
this is Howard Way, Tom.
No, I'm saying that. It doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah.
If it's anywhere near an entrance to this particular area, we need to make it, and we need to resolve that to make it as bland as possible, so people don't really. Yeah, yes, but at the end of the day, it's still our responsibility to make sure, because these are going to be gateways in.
That's fine. That's fine.
Well, all I can, because of technology, there will be no increase in the current. What we've got on site is what we will be retaining on site, if that's the question that you're asking.
No, the question I'm asking is, the one at Howard Way, I'm sure you don't know the details, Andrew might be able to actually answer it. The one at Howard Way, is it going to... Chair, I'm not quite sure what's going on over here. We're actually cabinet members who actually sometimes engage in conversation. Chair, am I going to just behave?
Carry on.
Well, I treat... well, it's interesting. At the end of the day, how large is this substation going to be, Andrew?
Sorry. Are you talking about the substation, or are you talking about the comment that Andrew gave around the data? Because the substation is staying exactly the same size.
Right, well, can we do something about the graffiti, please?
Absolutely, we'll talk to our colleagues in environment.
Good.
Right. Are there any questions on the proposal before Cabinet, as opposed to any planning implications of it?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, another exciting step on the way to get rid of the enterprise zone. Fantastic jobs and numbers of jobs, and raising the profile of Harlow. I do just have some questions actually on the paper. Councillor Durkin said just now that we're already borrowing 4 million and we're looking to borrow some more. The recommendation says to undertake a borrowing of up to 4 million, i.e. it hasn't taken place yet, and then further 10 million for the building. So if you could just clarify that. And I recall that when this project actually took off, the council had to make a commitment to lend, I think it's 5 million towards the development costs, particularly for the infrastructure. But there's some uncertainty as whether that was ever actually going to be called upon. So are we borrowing any money at the moment? And just confirm that the 4 million is an additional debt.
Okay.
That's the first question.
Two questions. I'll deal with the first one, get Andrew to deal with the second one. In relation to the 4 million, we haven't actually taken it yet. It has been ring fenced and it has been protected for that particular reason. But we have.
It's subject to this decision.
but clearly we have to wait to get the total package before, because 4 million, if we just went for the 4 million, we could build something, but if we don't get the rest, it's pointless doing it. So it actually comes as a whole piece of that. So that is there, but it hasn't been utilised in any particular way. So if I did give any confusion over that, I apologise. In relation to the 5 million and the others, Andrew, as the project manager, will be able to respond to that.
I think probably referring to, it's actually £2.5 million to Harlow Properties Limited. It was a £5 million package, half from the council and half from the Homes and Communities Agency. But Harlow Council, as part of that, was £2.5 million to support the infrastructure development at the KO Park site. That work is now completed and is now resulting in the data centre being constructed. We absolutely expect that money to be repaid, and they're under a legal obligation to do so. In talking with the developers, I strongly suspect it will be repaid in full next year when they refinance the whole scheme, but they are duty bound to repay that under the terms of the loan agreement anyway.
Thank you much, Dave, very helpful. In paragraph 5, there's a reference to where the council will take responsibility for delivering the estate roads and off-site infrastructure. I'm just wondering why the council will be responsible for off-site infrastructure and what the infrastructure would be.
The off-site infrastructure essentially refers to the bringing new power supply to the site, and it's the work from the Howard Way substation to London Road. When we went out to tender, the advice we received from our professional advisors was that to attract development partners, the council would need to make some investment to make the site sort of development ready, and that the developer would be expected to come in and fund the works on site. But bringing in, at the moment, obviously it's a greenfield site with no services, and the council would need to fund the importation of power supplies to the site.
So, can I just go back to the Howard Way substation? Is this
I'm not doing this.
Is this the large one down by the big shops and what have you, at the bottom end of Howard Way? Because I seem to recall that the power company had a major programme of upgrading some of the cables around the town last year. So is this going to be additional work?
It is. The work that was done last year was bringing supplies from Roydon along 3rd and 2nd Avenue to KO Park, specifically for data centre development. This work is specific from the Howard Way substation, near the sort of Halfords and Business Park. So what we're doing is funding an upgrade to that. Last year we were told by UK Power Networks that there was not sufficient capacity in the area to support the development. Since then they've now said that they are able to construct an upgrade to that power substation. It doesn't result in an increase in the size of the site, it's what they can do on that site. But it will result in new cables being brought from that substation along First Avenue and up A414 to the Science Park site.
So they will have to lay more power cables?
Yes.
So they'll have more disruption. Oh joy. Moving on. Paragraph 15, we're talking about potential occupiers of this new building. It would appear that those three potential tenants will actually take up all the space. Is that right?
Potentially, and that would be a nice position to be in. These are 3 examples of people we've been talking to. I would be amazed if all 3 we ended up signing leases for, although in fact in relation to C, there, 15C, I did actually receive a written offer yesterday of space, perhaps not at the level we'd be liking, but nevertheless it's still a formal written offer. offer for the space. So it shows that we are getting, even though we haven't actually started marketing it yet because there isn't any agreement to build the building, we are getting substantial interest. But you know, those are just examples of interest that we've received to date.
And then in paragraph 19, talk about, as you were saying earlier, that the loan will be repaid from the business rate. So therefore there is the rental income coming in. Some of that would be used obviously for also management costs and what have you. Are there any other claims on that income that you know, any other sort of people we have to repay, or does that come to the council?
No, because the loan is repaid through the business rates, that all of that money would come to the council, yes, clearly, and that is to spend at the council's discretion, that there are no ties to that money. Clearly, as you say, we would have to make provision for you know, the management costs, the running costs, the maintenance of the building, and also making a provision for any potential void periods in the future so that the council could cover the costs of business rates if it needed to do so.
And Chair, with your it's a slightly wider question which doesn't specifically relate to this issue, and if it's inappropriate, I'll accept an answer afterwards. Talking just now about the power demands of the data centres and the amount of heat and so forth they will generate. Are we aware of any proposals to recycle that heat?
I think that's probably is now. I have discussed this with the developers of the data centre actually, and I must confess I am far from being an expert on air conditioning systems, but they tell me that the technology that they are using in the data centre cooling is essentially recycling in some way the heat that's generated back into the power to power the data centres. So that what they tell me is that there isn't a surplus of heat that's generated, because we did actually have that thought that is there a way of capturing that could then be used for other things in the town or on the enterprise zone site itself, but it seems that's not possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to welcome this report. I'm really pleased that it's happening. I've been to see the site and it's really good for Harlow. And I'd just like to say that I'm happy that Harlow Council and Essex County Council are working together on behalf of Harlow residents and the businesses that are going to work in Harlow to make this town a more prosperous place. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Chairman, can I echo that? I think I said that at one of the last council meetings, that actually, whilst Malcolm Morley, one of the key players is Kevin Bentley, who is the Deputy Leader of Essex County Council. He has been a force and has been an incredible supporter and an ambassador to Harlow, and we congratulate him and thank him.
Thank you, Chair. I think this report sets out an important statement, and I'm also grateful to Councillor Durkin for his kind words at full council. I wasn't there, for the collaboration between parties on regeneration and how important that is. I'm also grateful to Andrew Bromwich as well for organising the visit so we could actually see on the ground what is happening there. Of course, I live next door to the enterprise zone in Newhall, and I see it expanding all of the time. It's exciting that the data centres are going in and there's a lot of activity and there's a lot of hype. I think it's vitally important this new office building is given the full support of all parties, and that is a given, which is good news for the town. When you look at the soft market testing and what sort of complementary organisations will move into those, could potentially move into the new office site, like a law firm that's interested in what has a speciality in life science and tech services and so on. Those kinds of services add to the rich texture of businesses that there are across the town. Also, you look at the estimated rental income that could come from this building as well, and how important that will be to the council and for helping this council in the future. I think this is an investment in the town's future. We already know that because the enterprise zone will create jobs for the town. And I think that when you look at the progress that there has already been, you know, Harlow is going to be on the map and it's going to compete with big regional centres where we sit in the eastern region. And for that reason and that reason alone, I think this is an exciting time for the town. And to be the local councillor that represents the enterprise zone, it's a fantastic thing to have and to represent.
Chairman, can I just add to that? I also think it's not only about today and what we can do in the next 2 to 3 years when it's actually an investment to enable us to invest in the future. And what I would hope going forward that this council would use that legacy to invest that money that we get to improve and create new and greater jobs and opportunities and therefore prosperity, which then will raise everything in relation to the town. So this decision is, I think, agree with you, is an important decision today, but actually the ripples and the success will be felt for generations in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to make this any more of a love-in than it is at the moment. So, I'm really happy. I remember when Rob Halfon told me back in the end of 2011 that we were getting this enterprise zone status, and we were one of only a few in the country. 24, as it turns out, in the end, a few more than I think he imagined at the time. I was really excited because, just like Councillor Charles says, I thought it was going to put Harlow on the map. It's been a long trudge to get to this point, but I think none of these developments ever happened really, really quickly. But it's really good to see things finally taking off. And I can see the potential now of where this will be in another few years' time. I think when we look at the report that you looked at earlier about the health and well-being of the town, we all know that health and well-being indicators are very much linked to education and employment. And I think the education that's going to come from this, and the link to that, the employment opportunities and education opportunities that are going to come from this development, are going to help drive the town forward in a much more healthy and more prosperous way. I want to make it very clear that the Conservative Group is very much in favour of this development, and the administration has our full backing on this. I noticed that call-in procedures may apply to this. I can assure you there won't be call-in, and in fact, if it will help the enterprise zone in any way, we're quite happy to waive the call-in procedures if we can, if that will speed it up, because I don't want anything to stand in the way of this development. We think it's a really good news for the town. We think it's really good investment in the future of the town, and I'm very happy to see it moving forward.
Just to make a very brief remark myself, I will start by just reiterating comments being made about the really strong joint cooperation between government, between the private sector, between the local authorities, Harlow Council ultimately, but the County Council's full support. I'd certainly echo Councillor Durkin's comments about Councillor Bentley in particular, who's been a fantastic advocate, not just for the enterprise zone, but for Harlow more generally. And every time I've heard him speak, for example, at the London Stanford Cambridge Corridor conference every year, he hardly mentioned anything else than Harlow, so I can certainly appreciate that. For me, this is an important milestone. Anyone's heard me talk about the regeneration of Harlow in the round will have heard me talk about my four legs of the stool, which is infrastructure, jobs, housing, and skills. And certainly this as another piece in that jigsaw of adding to the economic regeneration of Harlow, but adding to the infrastructure as well. And the final point I just want to make is, in terms of the second element, the £10 million for building, what will be the second building on this zone. Clearly there will be some risk involved in that, which is why this is a decision in principle, and we're going to look at the detail of the risk involved in that. However, on the face of it, that risk is significantly managed by the fact of the broader business rate income in terms of the loan. But also, the upside is also significant. So it will generate a continuing ongoing revenue for the council and contributes to Harlow Council's finances being self-sustaining and not dependent on other outside agencies. So from all those angles, in terms of echo comments we've made about a significant milestone in regeneration of Harlow, but also the sort of knock-on implications that are also very positive. So while we won't take this final decision, when we get down to the final option, likely, because as I say, there are some businesses involved as well. I think it's absolutely right that we do take the decision principle to continue with this. So if there are no further contributions, then the recommendations A to D on page 20, are we agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Good news. That brings us to the minutes at item 12 from the Housing Standards Board Shareholder Subcommittee and Harlow Local Highways Panel for noting. Really, so noted. Having no matter version of business, this is Act 2. So thank you. Thank you.